its own, it definitely makes it seem like the bull market this cycle is just drawn out so much more.
Yeah, which is good, which is great actually for everybody that's been here for the long haul, and all the people that have been shaken out in the last days, weeks, months. That's just, it's going to help the system, and it's nice to have some runway, because I don't want to be over in January. I don't want to be over in March. I mean, March would be fine, but the longer the better, in my opinion, I guess.
Yeah, I think, obviously longer sustainable growth, but I think we are in need of some growth, right? Like I don't think sitting down here at these levels is very productive in my opinion. No one's really getting onboarded with this much uncertainty. I do think Pulsion in general needs to start making some progress in the upwards direction, even if we don't have like an alt season starting quite yet, right? We have some ground to cover since we've been suppressed so much. And I was going to ask you, because I've seen that suppression bot thing going around. Are they just referring to a few large wallets being those suppression bots?
No.
And they just...
All right, now that's my immediate knee-jerk answer. No. And I believe that, but let me go back and get to the source that I got that information from. Let me lay eyes on it, and then I can read it, and then you can kind of perhaps discern along with me. Let's see. Supposedly in the chats, RH is inserting 500 ETH into Tornado Cash past 30 minutes. People learning their lessons not to post about it. And then I asked a question, and they're like, yes, RH suppression bot pushing the chain down. Now, that doesn't sound like a person. It sounds to me like a machine, especially because this the gentleman that just answered my question here in this chat referred to someone else who said this other person used to track them. And this person said, he replied, this person jumped in and he says, it was easy to see. The question is this the last push down before we launch, or just to put more pressure on sellers to get out? And
yeah, I would definitely be interested in the activity of these wallets they're talking about, because I'm not saying, because usually for like in a bot scenario, there's always a buy and a sell, right? So you would think that maybe they're buying up low areas and then selling once momentum kind of picks off, pushing the price back down with profits, kind of like a trader would do. That a lot of times suppresses price when you have a system that's always selling when you get into higher levels and buying when you get into lower levels, like if the RSI or the MACD. It makes it very difficult to push past those resistance points and make it to the next level. So I'm kind of just wondering, hey, is it something like that going on? Like something that's literally trading the market and suppressing us by not letting, us move to the next level? Or is this just wallets that sacrificed a bunch of money that every time we go into like a profitable range, they're just selling? And is that what they're considering a suppression bot? Because obviously you could do that with code to make it a bot, or you could just be calling that just to make it more fun to say. But I was just kind of wondering what the activity was to give it that title.
Yeah,
because to me it kind of just looks like big players, if those big players are big players that just are associated with Richard or Richard himself, or people not associated at all, just not willing to be along for the ride anymore, is what I've seen as far as the sell pressure. Just a couple big wallets that had large amounts of holdings have been very much selling a very large amount of their position here on the market at these low levels.
Right. Well, I reached out to see what kind of answer I could get. Because, Definitely my impression is that it's like digital bots, computer bots.
Yeah, code
There you
trading
go.
or something like that.
Yep. And to me, that just means that, somebody's paying attention. Somebody is working on his chain. Somebody has an outcome in mind, because you don't go create bots or sell pressure, to make everything look terrible for no reason. I mean, why would you make something look terrible? I was watching the Matrix movie, and at the very end, like toward the end, Trinity and not Morpheus, Neo, they're going back in to rescue Morpheus, and they're selecting their weapons. And Trinity comments to Morpheus, she says, this has never been done before. And his reply was, that's why it's going to work. And I'm like, oh yeah, man, that's pulse chain. That's Richard Hart blocking hundreds of his own followers and suppressing his price and making it look horrible. It's never been done before.
So let me ask you, what would be your first answer of what the positive portion of suppression of price would be?
Contrast. In one word, contrast. Coming out of the gates, I mean, running. It's like other chains they've been jogging along, right? They've been jogging along and now they're sprinting, right? And there's that's impressive. But Pulse Chain, it hasn't even been jogging. It's just standing there. Suddenly, it's sprinting. That's gonna be that's very impressive. That will leave more of an impression on the market than those other chains that have been jogging along. Well, it may not make so much of an impression, but it will draw attention. Okay, because anybody, yeah.
You know what it kind of reminds me of a little bit is the Muhammad Ali, the rope and dope, where he would kind of sit back and just let the opponent fire and fire and fire and fire and fire.
Yes.
Use up all their energy, and they wait a strategic time to kind of, obviously win. In the example of blockchain, you would say get the attention of everyone. And if you haven't exerted any of your energy yet, and all of your opponents have, maybe your opponents by spending money on marketing, wasting some of the green candles too early. So then when it becomes time for green candles, when new money has actually come in, you can use all those green candles within a shorter period of time, making it to where you have consistent green candles over and over and over again, to where another blockchain or another token might have a period like a week where they need to, slow down a little bit, maybe have a few red days. But since we've suppressed ourselves and saved up so much economic energy, we can push right through those times to really garner the attention of other chains and mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah, this has never been done before, I guess. And that's why it's going to work. I hope.
Well, how many times have we seen Richard say, win it by 10,000x, but he's always usually the bottom of the bottom. Maybe that's going to be something we can play with here, is that we can start our calculations from wherever we end up at this dumping point.
Okay, let's say
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know how much further we would have to go down to go to a new bottom. I think we're still like a good 100% up from the bottom on Pulse Chain and Hex and PulseX. I haven't looked for a while though. Maybe if you want, you can pull it up. But are you saying Blackthorn just lingering down here? So there's a lot of points that people could get these bottom levels and measure off of it. So it's not just one wick. It's like a whole range to where he'd be like, hey, there's a good 100 days you could have bought in these lows. Or are you saying you think it's going even lower?
I don't think it's going lower, at least not at a local low. I mean, obviously, a year and a half ago is lower, but I would just be facetious, you know, and when every time he says it went up by 10,000 X, like, yeah, if you measure the bottom of the bottom to the top of the top, yes. But, you know, very few people get in at the bottoms and get in at the tops. But I have my sister who's going to be putting about $5,000 into this. She was going to do it a week and a half ago, and she keeps calling me every day like, hey, I don't have the money yet, but I'm going to do it tonight. And I say, you know what? No rush. It just keeps getting better and better. You're going to buy more and more. But I told her last night that I think that game is about up. I think we've hit a low and we shouldn't wait any longer. Sorry, I don't have any bigger thoughts than that. Just randomly spouting off ideas.
Yeah, I agree with you. Richard obviously is going to measure off whatever the lowest point is. I think that lowest point happened in April. It could be wrong.
It was March 31st was the knife down to 4017. Because the next day was April Fool's Day. Which was the day that Rabby Wallet stopped supporting Pulse Chain.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it went all the way back down to those levels.
Yeah, me too. No.
It looks like they're pretty strong right here, just naturally. Looks like people are willing to buy. Looks like still people obviously are willing to sell too. But
yeah, does anyone track the guy? I just got a whole bunch of lock-in rewards over the weekend. Was there some dude that just just rage quitted over the weekend?
So there was one wallet I saw that I don't know how big the unlock was, but I did hear that there was like a $50,000 sale over the weekend that happened around the same time as that unlock. It looked like, from what I heard, the person just sold the PTGC, went into PLS, swapped it for ETH, bridged out, and just left the chain completely. So it's not even like, we're not at the point, I think, where people are like exiting to go chase other things or want other Pulse Chain assets. I just think people are just getting exhausted seeing other chains moving up, and us being, like Banana was kind of saying a little bit earlier, feels like a little bit suppressed over here on Pulse Chain. But, you know, we're talking about reasons why, if there was natural or not natural, just suppression going on Pulse Chain, what pros could come out of that. And really the main one I think both of us agreed on was, you know, it's similar to the Muhammad Ali rope and dope, where you just let every single competitor exhaust themselves, and then you come out with all your energy.
Yeah, in answer to your question, Blackthorn, there was a large unlock. I don't know what the total was. Zen, you inferred it was maybe $40 or $50,000 worth of PGDC, but I know this. I just took a snapshot of all of the locking rewards for my experimental wallet last maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. And since then, already 270 million PGDC had been unlocked, which is, you know, not quite the average for a 30-day period, but the average being 395, you know, it's really close. So we could end up having a very high month for locking rewards. And I posted that on X, by the way, yesterday, Blackthorn, if you want to go. I posted a summary of it on my X account.
Okay, cool. I'll go check that out. And maybe we keep using the wrong terminology. We call it suppressed. Maybe it's not suppressed. Maybe it's just completely ignored. Maybe we're just a few people banging drums in a circle in the middle of the woods, and no one can hear us.
Sure.
Sometimes I feel that way about Pulse Chain, that everyone else are having big parties and everyone's getting paid attention to, and here at Pulse Chain, no, not enough people are paying attention, or at least they don't see the party going on.
Yeah, one thing I would say about Pulse Chain is a lot of us, like even I'll put myself in this category, is I sometimes see myself stuck in an echo chamber as far as like my own tweets or even these spaces or VCs, and it is important to try to make connections with users on other blockchains or possibly someone that's not even like a crypto maxi and just has a platform and willing to talk and wants to do a podcast or whatever. That was one thing I think Richard brought a lot to the table with his live streams, is he constantly was talking to people that were outside of the echo chamber. They're Ethereum maxis, Bitcoin maxis, even goes on podcasts with Fresh and Fit, which aren't really crypto maxis. They're kind of just talking about whatever, but he was very good about just going on any platform that actually was expanding the reach of the community every time he went on. That's one reason I really hope he comes back, because of his stature and who he is as a person, as being an early Bitcoiner, being in crypto so long, being a retired millionaire, obvious, or billionaire possibly. A lot of people are willing to do streams with him, like that are outside of our already existent community. Because if you're telling people that already know the story and already know the product the same thing over and over again, it's not the best use of time. But if we can reach out to brand new people that are willing to hear, and if Richard, just because of who he is, he has a better ability of getting on I would say he could probably get on almost anyone's podcast at this point. He beat the SEC and everything if he really wanted to. This would be massive for Pulse Chain.
Mm-hmm.
And he's obviously an amazing debater. Like, he does very, very well on live streams and stuff like that, for the most part. Towards the end, he was getting a little crazy there, but he's obviously very, very good at talking about crypto. He's a crypto expert. He's also an expert in finance in general, in my opinion. He understands business very well, and he's obviously wealthy, so people enjoy talking with him, or at least enjoy letting him come onto their platforms and talk, because viewers tend to enjoy listening to him. I think with Pulse Chain going up, I actually would think a lot of the Hex community will actually start to break into other groups. Currently, there isn't much interesting things happening on Pulse Chain in general right now. But if Pulse Chain starts doing a bunch of X's very quick, I think even the existing community without Richard can start making their way into other groups of people to educate them. Because when things are going green, people are willing to listen. They want to listen. When they see people changing their lives in short amount of times due to these products, they actually want to learn. But when things are kind of where they are right now, they're not interested. They aren't asking you to come up, etc. So even without Richard doing it himself, I actually think a lot of our community could make our way in that direction with the help of price appreciation of the blockchain. So me and Banana have to be ready.
Ready for
educating people outside of the echo chamber of Pulse Chain about Pulse Chain, Richard, and PTDC and UFO.
yes. Yep.
But you're kind of doing that.
I am. Yeah. I am. I'm sharpening my skills. I'm trying to work on. Go ahead.
Hey, I was just curious what you guys' opinions were with. I had seen on Pump.Tires, their page, they had posted where supposedly we're going to be at SAC price by the end of October and all-time high by January. And isn't that like, I would assume Richard Hart, or at least his team, is the one running that. So, like, what do you guys think about that?
Are you talking about the Twitter account?
Yeah.
It's proven that that's ran by just a random community member and not actually associated with Richard's team at all.
Okay.
And the person admitted it in the early days, I think, because when Pump.Tires came out, I think he saw that there was no account affiliated with Pump.Tires, so he just changed his name to Pump.Tires and kind of took it upon himself to be like the Pump.Tires page. Some people don't really like it because it's confusing. You're not the first person who has like brought things from that account to me saying like, oh, this is what Pump.Tires says. But I think it's better, personally, I think it's better to have someone actively behind a page like that who's positive for the ecosystem over like just dead PulseX and PulseChain accounts, which we have currently on PulseChain right now. The like PulseChain Twitter and the PulseX Twitter haven't been active for years.
Oh, okay, that's great to know, because I was like, oh wow, that's a good indicator if it is Richard that it's not going to be the extended bull run rather than the short term one. But even then, they were saying or on that post, they were saying by the end of October. So hey, maybe it could be even before the end. We'll start pumping. We'll see.
Yeah, we could, with a few green days early in October, we can make our way up pretty fast. So, I'm not saying that it's not going to be true or anything. I definitely hope it's going to be true. I think ETH showed some serious strength the last few days. So whoever is behind that, like I said, I think it is proven that it's not Richard or his team. It's just someone taking it upon themselves to have like an active account that is eye-catching due to obviously the name. Hopefully his TA or his guess is accurate.
Does anybody else care to come up and talk? It's open mic.
Richard's been really taking it to the community the last couple of days.
Yes. I made a comment in a chat earlier today that he seems a little grumpy. Like he's been working real hard or something. Like maybe putting in overtime, maybe not getting enough sleep. That's just what's going on in my head. Like maybe he's getting ready for something. Maybe he knows it's about go time for his chain and he's putting in some extra effort. I don't know, what he could be working on, but I imagine he has a lot to do. And therefore maybe he hasn't gotten enough sleep and he's grumpy because he sure does seem grumpy.
Yeah, definitely a good portion of it had some frustration to it, right? Which I wouldn't see why he wouldn't be frustrated. You've put a good portion of your life in the direction of your blockchain, in crypto in general, and he could be suppressing it, but I think overall maybe he's not super happy with where we currently are just naturally.
That
maybe
could be.
Even with depression. And it maybe is nothing to do with price. Maybe somewhat frustrated with community, maybe frustrated just with where we are situation-wise with ETH, the fact that ETH still hasn't truly broken into all-time highs and it's pretty far along in the market. And maybe that's coming out a little bit in the tweets. There was one specific tweet where he was talking, and I'm going to have to go back to it to kind of look at it. But to me, it was, I think, one of the closest we've gotten from Richard saying, hey, like everything hasn't gone completely to plan, but that's okay. I will persevere through anything, right? And that really stood out to me because I think it's almost like naive for the community to think everything is going to go perfectly to plan. Like crypto is so much ever evolving. And, for an example, PulseChain had a massive product market fit going on with ETH gas prices so low. And then PulseChain launches and then ETH actually starts fixing their gas prices soon after, which if their gas prices were never fixed, I think a lot more people would have maybe moved over to PulseChain just because it didn't make sense to even transact on Ethereum due to the prices being so high. But obviously that they fixed it, you know, you could then have to kind of even shift possibly the reason for your chain to exist, right? Like, hey, like you guys are currently not perfectly priced out, or not perfectly, like you're priced out of even doing swaps. Like there's times where swaps are like hundreds of dollars, right? To where this gave Pulse Chain like an extreme good product market fit just alone, that it's a exact fork, or not exact fork, but a pretty close fork of Ethereum, where if you know how to work Ethereum, it's pretty easy to get over, etc. But things kind of change. Gas prices have been relatively low for a very, very long time now. So I do think there is some pivots that have to happen throughout the existence of Pulse Chain. I always ask myself too, like when Pulse Chain first launched, do we think Pump.Tires was part of the roadmap, or was that something that got added after the fact because he saw the environment of crypto evolving and possibly came to the conclusion that there's no way that Pulse Chain isn't going to have there already was 9mm or 9-inch already had a token generator just like Pump.Tires. They had their own version, but Richard understood that he could just make the product and make it to where a lot of the value that was generated went back to the system of Pulse Chain, and it was maybe something worth his time and energy to create. So I believe Richard's having to constantly pivot, and maybe he's getting a little frustrated with just the amount of curveballs he's been getting. But he made it very clear in that post, and that post was one of the most impactful posts to me, that nothing is going to come at him that's going to make him not want to persevere and have a successful blockchain. So I don't know, we can go over that post if you want.
Yeah, we can do that. I was ending a hex stake today, and I just knew that that my copy over on Ethereum, the original over on Ethereum, was going to be too much to end. And so I went over there anyhow, and it was $200. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to let that one go. I'll just be content with the tokens I got over on Pulse Chain.
Well, that's a good example that even with the gas price drops, a lot of true like DeFi protocols, and for like real DeFi protocols to be successful, gas still needs to be cheap.
Yeah. I DM'd you a post by Richard. I was showing it on the screen for the YouTube viewers, and they're getting a hoot out of it. They're getting a laugh out of it. I don't know if you've seen it. It's 4 hours ago. Richard Hart posted a video of him he's staying in a fancy hotel in the tub, and he's washing his laundry with his feet in the tub. You don't want to miss it, man.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's posting Vitalik.
Yeah.
Is saying the same thing that that he was saying, you know, a good 3 years ago, that if you're traveling and living that nomad lifestyle, which is interesting because I think Richard lived that nomad lifestyle for a long time, where you didn't really have a permanent residency, and Vitalik lives a nomad lifestyle. What I heard was Vitalik doesn't even own a home or rent a home. He just travels the world, and a lot of times stays with Ethereum developers as he kind of just hops around.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's footloose and fancy free. When you don't have a house, that's a big responsibility you don't have to even worry about.
Yeah, he's been doing it, I'm pretty sure, like that since before Ethereum was even launched. Vitalik's been pretty much a nomad since like right out of high school, I'm pretty sure.
Wow. Okay, so we can look at some of Richard Hart's posts. Do you know which one you want to look at? He's been posting quite a bit today, and he turned his comments off too, by the way, which is another thing that's ticking the community off. I mean,
I think he turned it back on, right?
Maybe he did. Let me see. Oh yeah, I guess he did.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I think got him a little riled up today, as he was asking for things to add to the block explorer, and then people started telling them to fix price and start streaming.
Yeah. Like, guys, stay on topic. Right.
Yeah.
They're taking advantage of the situation. Yeah.
It's a difficult situation, right? Like I see both sides of it. There's a point, I think, where I don't want to say you have to respect, because anyone could do whatever they want and they can say whatever they want. But I do think you have to be careful with the hand that you're expecting to feed you too, and not biting at it too hard. I think being constructive and in a respectful way is definitely good, but a lot of people take it too far.
Yes.
But I understand for them too, right? Like when you invested money, in quotes, sacrifice money 5 years ago, and that investment is pretty far down, and you thought it was a somewhat safe investment, not like a meme coin gambling situation, it becomes frustrating, especially if you've spent a lot of time and more money invested in the project, to where it wasn't just a one-time investment 5 years ago and you haven't looked since. If you've invested a lot of time, energy, support, I look at it a lot like when you have employees and you hire someone on and they get hired on to do a specific job, and you tell them that you're going to give them all the tools to do the job, right? You tell them like, hey, we have to dig this trench, but I got the shovels, I got the backhoes, I got everything they need to dig this trench. And then they're like, okay, cool, I'm in. And then they show up there, and every single day they're showing up, but the backhoe's there, the backhoe's not there, the shovel's not there, nothing's there. And they're digging the trench by hand for weeks on weeks. And then they get to the end of the week, so they're like, wow, that was a lot harder, but I'm in it for the long haul. And then by the end of the 2 weeks comes around, the boss doesn't got the paycheck, right? Ooh. But then the boss says, I need you to get back to work and keep digging that trench. Well, a lot of the times people say, no, I'm not going to do that. This isn't what I agreed to, which in cryptocurrency, that's not how it works. But I do like to use that example because it feels this way for a lot of people, right? A lot of people, even though you can't expect anything from the work of others, you can't expect, there's no guarantee in this space, but they're expecting it, right? So they were expecting that payday after 5 years, and they just haven't got it. And also they're at least expecting some of the tools to use to get that payday, to get the, a chart that's easier to market, etc. I think we can all agree that the current situation on Pulse Chain, even though it's the best opportunity to get people in, it's also the hardest time to get people in due to where we are.
Definitely.
And I do look at the chart, the volume, the amount of inflow of value, all as tools to make this chain successful. If we don't have a user base, if we don't have an inflow of value, if we don't have the proof of it being a successful investment, these are the tools that we need to keep growing this protocol or this blockchain in general. And I look at it like a lot of people thought they were going to have these tools to do the job. A lot of people thought they were going to get a payday for hard work. Some people haven't worked hard at all. Some people have worked very, very hard. A lot of people right there in the middle. But it's a very interesting spot. So I like to look at it from both points of views. Even I like looking at it from Richard's point of view, right? Like he's delivered what he promised he was going to deliver, and actually so much more. A lot of people are just bummed out that price isn't reflecting what we actually believe we have here. And that's a very difficult thing, right? And a lot of people are throwing that back at Richard like he needs to do something. But the community alone can do a lot, right? Like the chain has such little liquidity that if we can get through some of this additional sell pressure from some of these bigger wallets, and that's kind of what I think we've been fighting through for so long now, if we can get through these people, we can start moving up in price very, very easily with very little amounts of value injected into the system. And that will, I think, boost the morale, give people that paycheck, even if they're not cashing in that paycheck, just seeing it there in their portfolio, I think would do a lot for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I onboarded a buddy of mine earlier today, and I thought he was in PTDC. He's one of my internet buddies, you know, and so but I just asked him. I was like, "So, do you got a PTDC bag?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "What are you waiting for?" No, I didn't. I wasn't like that. I wasn't that blunt, but I was like, "Hey, man, you might want to, you know, at least get you $1 million." And he asked about it, and I told him a little bit. You know, I gave him the elevator pitch, and and he immediately got himself a just in case bag of, you know, $1 million plus, and I think he's excited about it. And he was asking me questions after he got excited and he got his bag, and then he was discovering about it. He's like, "So does this pay me passively?" I'm like, yeah, every minute of every day, every time it's a transaction, you're going to make a little bit of PTDC. And he's really excited about that. What got him the most excited and what compelled him to go get his bag was the AMM bots and how they are a constant source of buy pressure on the tokens. He said, that's what got me. I didn't ask him. He just came out and told me, "Man, those AMM bots, they got me. I had to get a bag then."
Yeah, today was a good example of that. This morning, EHEX, I think, had a decent little move now that Bank X supply of EHEX, which that's a good little talking point that we could talk about today as well when we run out of stuff. But there was a little pump on that, and more with UFO than PTGC, but also with PTGC because I think PTGC has around 100K of liquidity with EHEX, but UFO has like 720K with EHEX. And that was a great example with UFO. There was $20,000 specifically in the UFO EHEX pair. And we have to remember, if there's $20,000 in the pair, that value has to leave into another pair because it's getting sold out of the EHEX pair because the UFO is priced higher in that pair. And then it's moving into another pair. So technically, the 20K is actually 40K.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Go more deep into it if that didn't make sense.
Because you're including the second side.
Yeah. Because if you take away, if EHEX didn't do anything today, we saw the activity from the sells in the EHEX pair, but we have to realize the buys that they were doing in the other pairs, which gets divided pretty much amongst like all the LP pools, those buys wouldn't happen either. So just because we see $20,000 in the EHEX pair, it actually is more like 40,000 because you get to count in what it did in the other pairs that would never happened because of the action and then the reaction. The action happens in the EHEX pair from EHEX, but the reaction is the other pairs are getting bought up. So you can also include the transaction in those as well, because if EHEX never moved, those buys would have never happened either.
Okay. That makes sense.
And not that it's a crazy amount, right? That's like $40,000 today. But those things do start to add up over time in situations where without those pairs and without this system, there would be nothing there. But really above a lot of other systems out there as time goes on, these LPs get bigger and the assets that we are bonded to actually start moving up, which equals volatility, right? What we've seen in the recent weeks is EHEX has actually started making its way up against a lot of assets. So every time it does these little jump ups, they kind of come back down the next day, which we make money off of that too. And then there's a jump up again and it comes down the next day a little bit. We make money off of that. So if you believe Richard's assets are going to be successful, on the way to success, there's a lot of ups and downs. You know what I mean? If let's say just a 25x from here, right? I think a lot of people think Pulse Chain can do a lot more. Definitely multi-cycle, but on the way to a 25x, that's a lot of pushes upwards. That's a lot of volatility. That's a lot of bouncing up and down on its way to that. So that's a lot of value generation. And a lot of people don't realize a lot of times when we've seen the massive APY days on PTDC and UFO, it's been from crashes on Pulse Chain, not like big move ups on Pulse Chain. So while we are generating the revenue from market makers, the liquidity is actually shrinking. So as it's shrinking, we're making less and less and less. Imagine it the other direction. Massive moves upwards is growing liquidity pools as it's generating. So as we move up, the bots have to move more and more and more, compounding on itself.
Speaking of volume and volatility, UFO today has more volume than PTDC. You don't see that very often, but right now, PTDC has $59,000 of volume in the last 24 hours, and UFO has had 70,000. That doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. The last time we saw it consistently is when Richard's tickers were really moving. When Richard's tickers were really moving, we were getting a lot of mechanical volume out of UFO and a lot of human interaction volume too when the web of UFO really started to move.
Well, yeah.
I am interested to see if that, happens again when UFO has been extremely suppressed due to a very large amount of liquidity being to assets that have pretty much done nothing. But I like to look at it as like, if you look at like a standard index of let's say stocks, right? S&P 500 would be an easy one to look at. If all of the stocks in the S&P 500 perform horribly, obviously the S&P 500 performs horribly. So I look at UFO somewhat in the same light. If everything it's bonded to in this liquidity web are performing horribly, naturally it should be performing relatively horribly too. But what we've seen in the last, year and a half of UFO's launch, we're still roughly 10x higher than we were last time RH tickers were at these low prices. We went a lot higher. We moved up, I think, like 50x and obviously had this retracement, but we still landed at higher levels. I'm excited for the next move up to see this hopefully happen all again. Because the more times this happens over and over and over again, we can make even better educated guesses, better predictions for what the future could hold as we go through each cycle or microcycle.
Okay. So interesting. There is $3,400 in volume on the PTDC EHEX pair, and it has $54,000 in liquidity.
And there's another EHEX pair with PTDC. It's relatively small.
Yes.
With the V1 liquidity pair, which is just because it was made very, very early and
but in contrast to the UFO EHEX pair, which has $22,000 of volume and $657,000 in liquidity. So the PTGC EHEX pair has, the UFO EHEX pair has twice as much volume per dollar of liquidity. If that makes sense.
Does, or UFO
No,
does?
UFO. I think I got that right. I divided 21,000. This is on the UFO EHEX pair, 21,825 into $657,000, and I got like 30. Then if you go back to PTDC and divide the $3,300 into $54,000, you get like 12, I think. I was just trying to see which
lower would be better.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then the EHEX pair the PTDC EHEX pair is performing better than the UFO pair.
Lower, it's hard for me to do math on stream, but lower would be better. Less times into it means the ratio is better.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Interesting.
But that's kind of a cool milestone today. BankX being out. That was it. If we're talking about suppression, that was definitely a massive suppression to EHEX.
Why? Because they were continuously selling?
They had a lot of EHEX that they've sold throughout, the last year and a half or whatever it was. I don't know exactly the number, but it was continuous sell pressure, for quite a long time. I definitely think a lot of us just wish they ripped the Band-Aid out a long time ago.
Yes. Yeah, just get it over with. For sure. Well, what else is going on, guys? Let's see. Is there a particular tweet you wanted to review?
Yeah, there was. If you give me a second,
Got a little hopium, guys. I just read Khalid wrote something. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Here it is. Breaking news: top 5 Ethereum reserve entity Pulse Chain SEC funds have started moving. 5,400 ETH transferred to Tornado Cash. Yay!
Yeah.
By the way, Banana, thank you for unlocking, the juicy. I appreciate it a lot. And
You're welcome,
one more
man.
correction, because most people here on Pulse Chain, they just keep talking. No expectation, they're just throwing up projects and stuff. But specifically, Richard said that nobody's saying, almost nobody except me. He said no expectations of profit.
Yes.
From the work of others. Profit, not projects, not, development and stuff.
That's true.
Big difference.
That is true. But those projects and developments lead to profit.
So like the boss said, great 369, Richard delivered more than he actually said he would or promised.
Sure.
He did not guarantee profits. That's up to us.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. Every time you point your index finger, you got 3 fingers pointing back at you. It's got personal responsibility. Everything within my control is my responsibility. Everything within my circle of influence is my responsibility, not Richard's.
Yeah, I mean, it is a fact that most of the prominent, quote unquote, crypto community, hate him. They are jealous of him. They hate his success, and they will do everything in their power to bring him down. So he's kind of like this donkey hog, like fighting, just swimming upstream all the time. And I guess the community, we're fighting, people are trying their best, but so far it just hasn't, play out the way, we wish.
Sure.
But hey, Tornado Cash.
Yeah, to your point on that Tornado Cash transaction, I checked out what the price impact on Pulse would be, and without any sell pressure would send it to 5x above sacrifice price. So 305 something, because it would be like $23 million worth of Ethereum. But that's not the only funds that he has bridged over. Zen has mentioned some USDC, I believe, that he's bridged over, and it's just sitting here over on Pulse Chain.
Yeah, I think it's roughly 5 million. It's not all USDC. I think it's like a mix of a few things. But there was some Tornado Cash funds a month or so ago that was bridged over, and I think still just sitting.
So how do we stop dumping now if it starts moving up?
Well, how we stop dumping,
I
was thinking about that on my way in, is that One of the ways we stop dumping is Ethereum starts moving. Bitcoin keeps moving, Ethereum starts moving, and then people can see that our time is coming, and then they don't want to dump because they're afraid that they're going to miss out on some X's. Now, it's not going to stop everybody, but anybody that can see what's coming with a few months ahead of us in the bull market would think twice about dumping.
Yeah, the inflow of a growing community, I think, is a big deal for this blockchain at this point. I think the size that we are, the amount of onboards that should be happening just naturally has definitely came pretty much to a standstill. There's people here and there. Blackthorn was in here earlier telling us that he's onboarding his sister in, but with a little bit of green candles, I think that will re-spark up a lot of the natural onboarding. I think that will also spark up the non-natural onboarding that comes from green candles from other crypto people seeing. Obviously, the green candles themselves are because value's flowing over. You don't get green candles without value flowing over. So I think all those things added up will equal a situation where we have more buyers than sellers. Currently, in the last 2.5 years, we've had obviously more sellers than buyers. We wouldn't be here right now if that wasn't the case. We know that people have been onboarding. Everyone, I think, could count on their hand people they've onboarded into Pulse Chain. There's definitely some people, I think, that had to thin their bags out, and it was healthy for Pulse Chain to do. And hopefully we're getting close to that point where the amount of buy pressure coming in can get us past this hard level that we kind of keep getting stuck at, and we can break through it, and we can get that good positive energy back to where more people equals more people equals more people. Because we have to realize a new onboard that comes in now or a week from now or a month from now, if they instantly are up 2-3x, they're telling people about it, right? These are people that haven't been along this journey for 5 years with us. They don't have the same emotional tiredness as a lot of people, I think, here. They're going to be feeling great. They're 1 month in, up in profits, feeling like they just hit the lottery, and they're going to tell people about it. And those people come in, and then if those people get up, they tell people. So I think it's just we need to get past this point that we're just currently stuck at, and when we break through this, it should get good. And again, I think that's, if there is any suppression going on chain, I would say it's just wanting to keep all the green candles for the right time. Because if we can have consistent green candles at the end of this bull run for, let's say, 3 months straight, and no other blockchain is having that, and they see our community winning super hard, that's just going to attract more people.
There might also be the issue with ETH staking. I heard something. I mean, I'm just like hearing stuff about it. Like it's even on Google. I don't know if anybody wants to chime in about that, but that could be the catalyst for Ethereum to start going up.
Yeah, I think what they're going to start to do is offer like some staking yield with the ETFs of some sort. And they think this is going to be obviously a huge thing for Ethereum because Bitcoin can't offer this. And with Ethereum, big players obviously will be very enticed to put large amounts of money into Ethereum if they're not only getting the price appreciation, but they're also getting APY on their value because it's working for them. This is obviously like the main design purpose of PTGC and UFO is people put large amounts of money in it. That value is put to work. They receive an APY based on how large their holding is. They also get the price appreciation. So for me, this is just a reassurance level of like, hey, the design of PTGC is what everyone is looking for. They are trying to figure out ways to offer big investors what we have built into our code with Ethereum and ETFs and stuff like that. So going back to what Richard says, what we have is by far good enough. Just no one knows they exist at this point. people are actually reinventing their already existing things to almost not be like PTGC because they don't know PTGC exists, but they know what value is looking for as far as a product goes. And they're obviously trying to make it to where their products have the most product market fit. And I think we're just right on point with what our product offers. The fact that there's large liquidity, the fact that it's deflationary, it's a scarce asset, and the fact that the APY is built within the product. You don't even have to give your custody out to anyone to earn that APY. One of I think the things holding us back is obviously difficult to get, and trust in the overall blockchain is still getting built. If trust starts to be built with this blockchain and large players start looking at this blockchain as a true investment with very little risk, I think PTGC and UFO can explode with what they have built into their system. And with the foundation we've been able to set up at the bottom of Pulse Chain, which in a normal situation just doesn't happen, to where you have 2 years to accumulate the loads of that blockchain. So if that blockchain is successful, you pretty much own all the prime real estate of that blockchain.
Look, the reason I mentioned that is just like, I don't know enough about it, but I was wondering if Richard would even like consider doing something like that, to grow constantly his ETH bag and just, kind of bridging over the value to Pulse. Or am I just like off on that?
I think a lot of those things, there is a form of risk involved, and I don't think Richard's willing to risk the funds for a small APY personally for himself. I think he's fine with the safety of just keeping the assets locked away in some cold storage somewhere or whatever, to where he doesn't see the risk being worth it with that large amount of money. But a lot of other players with also large amounts of money are willing to take that risk. Especially, I would say the ETF side of it is going to attract a lot of big players who aren't willing to necessarily do that kind of stuff with crypto on their own. But since there's a management service doing it for them necessarily, obviously that management service is taking a fee. When they stake the Ethereum, they're going to take a portion of what they're generating for themselves and then just give the client, a portion that's remaining, which the client will be fine with that because they're like, hey, it's hands off for me. I don't want to learn this stuff anyways. I'm fine with giving you guys your piece of the pie. Look at all of the diversified stock accounts that the banks offer today. This is pretty much the same exact, way they run this kind of stuff too.
Do you also remember people talked like 2 years ago that he was using some kind of landing platform on Ethereum, like Aave or some sort? Is that any truth to that? Or it was just like
I don't think
rumors?
there's any. I think it's just rumors. I think people were speculating on what he could earn off of that.
Sorry, guys, my foot caught the charging cord.
Planning on never utilizing the ETH, but just planning on utilizing what that ETH generates, could be enough to create constant buy pressure on Ethereum or on Pulse Chain forever. A great example of this is kind of built all into PTGC, which is super cool. Is the value that we have is actually working for us, but we're not actually having to give up custody of it into other platforms. We can actually just use the liquidity web model to use the value that we own to put it to work, and then have that value be used to pumping the asset up so we can get value appreciation with even minimal demand. More recently, the Cardona founder, Charles Hawkinson, came out and literally said he's doing this exact same thing. He's selling his shares or his company's shares of ADA, and he's going to go put that value into other yield-bearing assets, and then he's going to use the yield that he generates off of that value, because the value is going to be relatively large, to then add constant demand to his product for forever, right? So what this does is you're kind of putting your value in products that have more demand than yours. So then you can take that demand that you're earning off of and just bring it to your product and then pump your product. Luckily, with the PTDC system, we don't have to give up custody of our asset. We actually have a system built to where with the liquidity web, we are putting the value in other assets like PulseX and Pulse, but we're not having to give up custody of it. And it's also liquidity backing the value of our asset ourselves. So I truly believe what we have here as far as a product goes is just very, if not superior, right there with some of the best assets and products or code bases in crypto as far as store of value goes. It has so many of the features people are looking for in crypto. It's amazing to see people like the Cardona founder having to pivot. Cardona. Yeah, sorry. Having to pivot to create demand off of value that they have in ways that like almost don't make sense, but do make sense because he needs the demand side, because there isn't much demand there right now with ADA. Where we have a lot of these features built into our system prior to launch, to where we don't need to backtrack. That doesn't mean like as time goes on and as crypto evolves, we won't have opportunities that probably present themselves to utilize funds in great ways, especially if Richard keeps releasing products and stuff like that, like I hope he does. I think he's going to be launching products for a very long time with his team, and there might be great ways to utilize some of the funds we have to work off of his products, because I bet his products are going to be good. But it's nice that we have a lot of stuff built within our system already.
Well, BTGC are just fine, but we want the chain too. So yeah, I'm just throwing all these, like speculations, like trying to keep up with the hopium, It's like, what can be done to move this chain, by him?
Yeah, I truly hope that this set of funds that is going into Tornado Cash maybe starts pushing Pulse Chain up. We have the marketing push going on right now, and pretty much ever since the marketing push started, price has been going down. But there's no guarantee of that stuff. The last time any funds from Tornado Cash got bridged in, I think they're just still sitting there. I don't think they're even used or anything. I look at it like, hopefully just before you do anything big, you prep, you get stuff ready. So I'm hoping he's just in the prepping stage, getting ready for the strategic time to start deploying this capital. I think it's not necessary. This capital isn't necessary, but it would sure darn hard help get us going in the right direction.
Prepping the missile launchers.
Does anybody know whether RH still has that 5 million Ethereum that he bought back in 2018?
What? I don't even know the 5 million Ethereum he bought in 2018.
Well, Mando mentioned it on Saturday Spaces, and then Alex Knob said he was watching a video of an RH debate where RH said he had 5 million ETH back in 2018. He's just trying to figure out if RH still has it.
Yeah, I'd be interested if anyone has the wallets in the when people were able to transform their ETH to Hex, because I believe that ETH just got sent to wallets with no expectations owned by Richard. And how I understand it is it's pretty much the exact same model done with Pulse Chain, but Pulse Chain wasn't done, so it was more of a sacrifice instead of a transformation. But ETH, the way you got ETH in the early days, and it was pretty much an entire year, is you transformed your ETH into Hex via code. And I personally don't know what happened to any of that ETH, but it was a lot of ETH every single day for a whole entire year going to this wallet or entity. I'm sure there's people out there that track it or have tracked it.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. You might be able to find them in Alex. You might be able to find some of those people in certain Telegram groups or on Twitter.
Yeah, there's a stream that I watched where he was educating someone, I think like 30 days after Hex's launch, and he was looking at the Hex website, and the Hex website showed the quantity of ETH every single day that was getting transformed into Hex. And it was like the first day was like 22,000, and then it was like 8,000, 8,000, 8,000, 8,000, 8,000, just constantly.
Well, 5 million Ethereum right now is worth about $25 billion. That'd be
I don't know those. I don't know where he got that from. Maybe Richard said he had that much, or he got that much, or he bought that much, or what. I don't know. But I do know that there was a lot of ETH that was transformed into Hex, and I don't know what happened to any of that.
Sure.
Could have been tornado cashed or something.
Wasn't there Bitcoin too?
Bitcoin, you could claim Hex for free, but you could not claim Hex for free with Ethereum. You had to transform your Ethereum into Hex. Which was pretty much like just a launch process of Hex. You gave your Hex or your Ethereum for Hex. And instead of going into a liquidity pool, how I understand it is it just went into a no expectations wallet. My guess is that no expectations wallet helped spark the Hex pump, and then probably users did the rest as FOMO kicked in. So I'm kind of hoping / making an educated guess that if you did something and it had so much success, most likely didn't even have to use all those funds. You could kind of just use that same play again. Obviously, there's even more funds now after the sacrifice of Pulse Chain. If he didn't even use all those funds with Ethereum back in the day, you could take an educated guess that he's waiting for it to be priced even higher. When he utilized it with Hex, it was maybe only worth $3,000 a pop. Now maybe it's worth 4,500, or maybe he's hoping it turns into 6,000. And he talks about this a lot on his streams, to where you can just take funds in for a project and hold those funds longer than most people will, because most people trade themselves out of positions. And you just hold that ETH or Bitcoin to a higher enough level, wait for that value to increase, and then you just pour that value into that original project. And as long as the users held on to that original project, they end up in a lot better situation than if they held the ETH themselves or whatever. So he talks about that being his plan. He's shown to do that kind of stuff in the past. Hopefully, he does something like that again with that value you just talked about. But again, he doesn't have to. He made that very clear.
Yeah. Well, it's a quiet spaces this evening, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. I'm good to shut it down early if no one has anything, but I'm also open to running through any other topics that anyone has or wants to talk about.
Did you see my post earlier today about the number of videos that we've done?
I did not know.
All right, you'll appreciate this. Let me get my eyes on it here. So we have had, well, on my YouTube channel, there are 178 spaces recordings like we're doing right now. There's 178 of them. They're almost all 2 hours plus. There are 99, other miscellaneous streams and videos, long form, not short videos, and 81 masterclass recordings where I walk people through the ecosystem. So we have a lot of content on my channel.
Yeah. That's a lot of stuff to go through.
Yeah. And by the way, I put this into the post today, and I highlighted that we have these, multiple opportunities for the community to interact with you and I and other people in the community. And I posted it up on my Twitter, and there's 3,000 impressions. 3,000 people looked at this post. That's advertising basically our ecosystem walkthrough, the spaces, and the Telegram voice chats.
How is this going to get multiplied once Pulse does like 10 or 20x?
How's what going to get multiplied?
The views, your views. I mean, the views on your videos.
Yeah, we're going to keep producing more content and fresh content, and that fresh content will get more views.
Yeah, but okay, look at it. So let's just say Pulse gets 10x from the segments, which will be all-time high. What will it do to PTGC?
Oh, well, we can do that. Let's do that. Let's do a moon math.
On your videos, how many people are going to be looking for videos of PTGC once it starts,
Yeah, I don't know.
shooting up?
I don't know, man. I've had as many, like on a Sunday, I've had as many as 150 people live on my streams. And that was back in January when we were really hopping. When we were at an all-time high. And there really honestly wasn't much going on at that time. It was just a high point, and I had 150 people live. I almost couldn't keep up with the chat.
Yeah, I think obviously if Pulse Chain's increasing in value, that means new users are coming in. If new users are coming in the Pulse Chain, those new users are looking for assets more than just Pulse Chain. So these people might become PTGC and UFO community members. And if Pulse Chain's community 10x's, let's say, in the next year, which is possible, I'd say Hex easily did a 10x to their community in their peak of their bull market. I actually would guess that it was more like a 50x or something like that. So I think in that situation, we can very easily 10 to 20, 50x the amount of people interacting with these spaces, these videos, just like how we're trying to 10, 50x the holders of PTDC as well. A lot of people will buy and not be active every single week in these spaces. Some people are just, hey, buy it and forget it kind of people. They don't interact with socials that often, but some people are looking for a place to listen in and hear updates and be a part of a community. And we're definitely going to have the space for them to, interact and be a part of.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's just the same way we're trying to increase token price is we're trying to increase the community size. And as we increase token price, as we increase the community size, naturally these videos will start to grow, which then naturally should start to compound on itself, because as more people are coming in and interacting, they should get pushed more in front of the line as far as algorithm goes as well. Green candles will obviously help all that stuff.
Yeah. And
that's what I wanted to trigger out of the great 369. Thank you.
I'm trying to figure out how I can help the algorithm for my videos to get it to more people, to get the videos to more people. The biggest thing is that people watch, my existing subscribers. That has to happen because YouTube sends the videos to my existing subscribers to see if they like it, if they'll watch it all the way through or much of it, if they'll like it, if they make comments. If it passes that acid test, then YouTube sends that video to fresh eyeballs. So it's important that people, engage with my videos if we want those videos to get in front of other people that haven't seen them before. So in answer to your question, Lolita Express, you said that you wanted to do you implied that you wanted to do a moon math. So if you do a 5x factor on PTDC, and you said
no, I want you to do the moon math on your videos. I'm already tired of this. We heard it like hundreds of times.
I do moon math every time I stream.
Moon math on your videos, not PTGC price, rewards and stuff. I don't follow you. Great 369 already answered, He just said what I wanted him to say. How it's compounding. Everything is just compounding on itself.
I see.
Once the PLS starts going up, and then you will get a lot more views on your videos.
There we go. Okay.
Because of PTGC mooning. I'm sorry, PTG is not mooning. We're mooning now, but it's gonna be out of space, outer space.
Yeah. Hello, backwards hat dad.
Yeah, I think, obviously we've been I would say very successful as far as increasing our price, increasing our holders, and increasing our, people viewing these spaces and videos in an environment that isn't growing. So I think the fact that we've been able to do that stuff within this difficult environment, when PLS actually has a increasing user base and increasing price, it should even get a lot easier to start increasing the activity within these spaces and videos.
And if there's more views and more activity, then that will also increase the price. Yin yang.
All right, guys. Is there anything else you guys want to go over before we shut it down? But if not, I'm pretty down to shut it down early today.
I'm good.
All right, cool. Lolito, thank you for coming in, adding to the conversation. I appreciate it. Banana, thanks for co-hosting it with me.
You bet. We'll do it again on Saturday.
Yep. Just keep an eye on those tornado cash funds. See if we see any large amounts bridging into Pulse Chain here soon.
Yeah. Anything can happen this week.
Yeah. All right, guys. See you.
All right. See you, Zen.
Take care.
think we're all tired, man. Who wouldn't agree? Who wouldn't agree with that? We're tired. Yeah, man. I literally went home and took a nap today. I left my office. I was like, I'm done. I'm going to go take a nap. I did. And that doesn't happen very often. Stinking slept for an hour and a half. Plug my ears, pillows over the head, whatever. Out, hour and a half. Yeah, we're tired, man. Got to be careful about burnout and starting to feel that, like got to go do something. And you busy with the house thing. Yeah, man. I went through that same thing back in December. You get through it. You get through it. All right, guys. Have a good week. We'll see you around the blockchain.